Hi, it's Tracy from TarotTuber, and today I'm doing a video response to Nat from Sanskrit Blue, and it is the Tarot Tribe tag. So let's get to it because there's a few questions actually. So the first one is, how did you get into tarot or oracle? So how I got into it years ago now. Actually, I was actually thinking that it was been just over 20 years that I've been reading the tarot, but that's wrong because my youngest daughter is going to be 28 this year, and I distinctly remember reading the tarot when she was around 1 or 2 years old. So I've actually been reading it a lot longer than I thought. So how it started was my ex-husband and I, we used to run a guest house in South Yarra in Melbourne. So it was a 50-room boarding house, and one of the girls there was a chef, and so she used to keep very odd hours. So she used to leave her rent for me in her room under a lamp. We come to an arrangement because, you know, she had really odd hours being a cook, or chef I should say. Anyway, one day I went up to her room and got her rent, and I noticed there was a book on the bed called Life's a Witch by Fiona Horn, and I thought, oh, that sounds interesting. So I picked it up and I read the blurb on the back, and next time I saw her, I asked her about it, and she says, oh, you should read it, it's fantastic. So I did, and it just blew my mind. It opened my whole world up to a whole new perspective. So, and in that book, she mentioned somebody called Titania Harding, and I went and bought her books, and she mentioned the tarot, and once she mentioned the tarot, I actually left that job and I got a night shift job, and I got a tarot reading from somebody. Actually, no, I might leave that bit because that will answer another question. So yeah, so that's how I found it. I found it through a really, I really believe the goddess put that book on the bed there for me to find, because that started me on my witchcraft path. It started me on my pagan path. You know, it just blew my mind, that book, and that's how I found it. So I went and read Titania Harding's, and she said if you hadn't had a tarot reading to go and get one done, and that's how it started on that particular one. So the next one, and I've got a little bit of sore throat today, so I'm just going to have some honey and lemon. And no, I haven't got the coronavirus or whatever it's called. This is purely from sleeping with my mouth open with the ceiling fan on, and and you get a sore throat. So the second question is, are you drawn to tarot or oracle more, and why? Well, I actually started with Lenormand, and I will show you because the next question said to show us your first deck. So I actually started reading the Lenormand. So when I discovered that book, tarot, the Lenormand, and my new way, my witchcraft, you know, witchy way, I suppose I should say, all happened within a 2-week time frame. Everything just come all at once. And I was in a local Kmart, and the author of the book, Titania Harding, had actually done her own Lenormand tarot deck, which I'll share in the next question, or Lenormand deck I should say. So, and as for being drawn, well, first of all, it was just purely the Lenormand. I just read that exclusively for quite a few years. I did have a tarot deck, just a normal Rider-Waite one, which I no longer have. And what I used to do is I never trusted it. So if I did a tarot reading, I'd pull out the corresponding amount of cards on the Lenormand to make sure I knew I was getting the gist of what my question was actually about. So at first it was just the Lenormand, and then that's gone way back now. I hardly ever read Lenormand. Every now and again I do, but it's definitely the tarot now that I'm much more drawn to. The third question is, if you could create a deck, your own deck, what it would be. Well, I'm actually doing that right now, and it's going to take a long time, I'm telling you right now. And my deck is going to be based on a little bit much like Nat. In the 4 years that I've been walking around this particular town where I live here at Two Rocks in Perth, I notice a lot of things out in nature. And in particular, there is a tree that I'm very, very attracted to. And I've got sort of formed a very strong bond with it, and I've decided that I'm going to try and make a native tree tarot. And I've done one card and I've kind of put it to the wayside because another creative project has actually been taking up a bit of my time as well. Because what I really wanted to do is I wanted to have the Aboriginal, the Indigenous trees. I wanted to know their tree medicine and turn it into an oracle deck. But it's really, really hard to find that information. Now, last time, the other day, Nina was at my house and she found a heap of information that I've still got to read through on that. She's really, really good at that, at finding information, because I really want to, the way I want this deck to come about, I want to have it's really hard to explain, but I want to have the medicine of the actual tree. So the first card that I have done, which I'm not going to share yet because it's still, you know, there's only 2 people who've actually seen it. I want to, it's the tree that I believe saved my house, the one that I've got a connection to from being in a fire. So how that started was I don't know, I just was really attracted to this tree. So I always, on my walk, I always stop and I put my hands on it and I talk to it and I bless it and then I go on my way. And one particular time there was this beautiful branch and I've got it, it's actually in the shed, I should have brought it out with quite a few leaves on it. And I walked past it and then something made me stop and pick it up and take it home. And I used to have it hanging on the wall. And anyway, as you all know, we had these bushfires come really, really close to our home. And we nearly had to evacuate. That's how close it was. You could see all the flames and everything like that. But in the end, we didn't. And I've just got this really strong belief that was the tree. That tree saved not only my house, but our town, because the very top half of our town, you couldn't even drive through. So we actually did get blocked in. We couldn't actually leave our town because all the roads were blocked. But at the very top of our town, so we live down the south end, I do believe it is, was terrible. People couldn't even leave. It was too dangerous for them to leave because the heat would have killed them. That's how bad it was. So it was really, you know, touch and go, and we were on ember alert. So then I was, you know, my husband had to go up on the roof and make sure that, you know, embers went on the roof and, you know, all sorts of things like that. So it was quite harrowing. And then afterwards I thought, I wonder if that was that tree. Now I know was that tree. I really do believe that tree saved my house and saved our part of the town, indeed the whole town, because despite it being so horrific, not one house was lost thanks to our wonderful firefighters. So I really truly believe that particular tree, actually, and that's why I call it, and that's the card that I'm actually going to call it. I'm calling it the guardian tree, because I truly believe that tree actually saved my house and saved our town. It was just, so I've got a very special bond with that tree. So that's the type of, it will be an oracle deck, I think, more than a tarot, because I'm a very pictorial reader, so the images really is what I resonate with when I read the tarot, not so much the association meanings. So I will be doing that, but it's going to take a long time, and I don't think it would be finished in a year, perhaps even 2, to be honest, really, because now I'm doing another project which actually involves that tree. But I'll save that for another video. So show us your first deck. So the first deck, as I said, was the Titania's Fortune cards. Now this is the second edition. The first edition I actually threw out because it just got, well, I'll tell you a funny story with that too. So this is what it looked like. So as you can see, so these are a little bit different. The original ones were much more dark. I hope you can see that. Might have to bring it a bit. So it's very, as you can see, they're really, really very, very plain cards. No embellishment, no writing, nothing whatsoever. So this was my actual first deck, sorry, did I say, oh, I hope I didn't say what I thought I said. That was my first deck that I read with for many, many years. Now the original one, like I said, fell to bits. So I've actually not laminated, I've put clear contact on it because the cardstock is shit. It's just like paper, so she's never changed the cardstock, and I edged mine in a gold sort of, I think that was just a Sharpie, that one. So the first one that I had many, many, many successful readings. So I mean, I predicted my now husband. I can't tell you how many things I predicted in this particular deck. The only drawback to this deck, and I have done a really big walkthrough on this deck, and you can find that, I think that's in my, I think I made a playlist with walkthroughs, I'm not too sure, is that it does predict death, and it will predict it, and like very uncannily. So I have predicted death with this particular deck. It's just what it is with this particular one. It just seems to pick that up. I don't think I've ever predict it in the tarot, but with this deck, yeah, I have. And so like I said, I had many successful readings with this deck for many, many years, and then, you know, it started to fall to bits, and then it started to smell. It was so old, but it went off. I've never ever had a deck that went off. It just got, all the readings were doom and gloom. Nothing read right with it in it, so I threw it out. I actually threw it out. And all the years I've been reading the tarot and the Lenormand, that's the first deck that I have ever thrown out, because that's how bad it got. I've even got, I had a Windows-based computer that runs Orphalese Tarot, where you can actually download, you know, decks to use as a computer program. It's fantastic. Take a look at it if you've got a Windows-based program. I even downloaded the fortune cards on that, and even that gave me crap readings. So I don't know if it was just a way for the deck to tell me not to read with it anymore. And so I was very hesitant to buy this particular one. But I've actually done a few readings with it, and it's okay. So but I still don't pick it up like I used to. So that was my first. This is my first deck. And then I also had when I went to the tarot, because like I said, it happened within 3 weeks. I just had a normal Rider-Waite one, but I actually gave that away. So I haven't, I can't even tell you, I can't show you what it is, because I haven't got any plain Rider-Waite decks anymore. So show us one of your recent decks and a recent crystal. Why were they calling to you? So I will, hopefully you can see the crystals down there below. I only got them yesterday. I actually got more crystals, but I want to actually do a proper video. So the really big one, well, the really big one, which you can see I've got 2 of, is called an Oakenite, which I've never ever heard of before. It was named after the German natural historian Lorenz Oken in Munich, Germany. This energy provides a feeling of going home, and this really resonated with me for many, many years. Since I was a young child, I always used to remember saying that in my head, I wish I could go home. I can't tell you how many times I've repeated that over my lifetime. And when I saw that, as soon as I saw this crystal, I had to have it. And it says here that it opens and clears the light body for connection to the earth, mind, and galactic grids. It initiates painless completion and total healing of one's karmic cycle. Acts to purify the chakras and the physical, intellectual, emotional, and spiritual bodies. Has been used to open oneself to the experience of channeling. Has been used to increase blood flow, stimulate circulation in the arms, treat fever, and alleviate stomach disorders. It's good for star people serving on earth. So this stone is not of earthly origin. It's got in there. So it's associated with the crown chakra. The vibration number is a 7, and it's got the sign of Sagittarius and Virgo. So I'll just have to take another drink. It's really heavy. It's about 12 kilos. That's why I made a photo of it. And you can see I've shined the torch. That's why the other one looks a little bit bluey in there, so you could actually see inside it. It's absolutely stunning. I love it. But the thing is when you touch that white bit in the middle, it's like cotton wool. So it feels like moss. It's very, very soft. It's not hard at all. It's absolutely amazing. I wish you could all touch it. I really do. And the beautiful black one, the crystallized cluster in the middle, is called a gypsum, and that comes from South Australia. Now, when I asked her about it, what her properties was, because she's been a gemologist for over 50 years, and she said that she knows that it's good for bones, but she would have to look it up. And I thought, well, I'm getting older, so, you want to have strong bones. But it's also part of the selenite family. So it can, if you leave it, it can turn into selenite. But gypsum is actually used for building gyprock. That they put the house in. Well, I don't know if you do it here. They plaster. We've got for some reason Western Australia puts plaster on our walls. But when I grew up in Melbourne, it was all by gyprock, and that's what it's a component of it. It's actually made to make gyprock. So I'm presuming that this particular crystal will be absolutely fantastic for protecting your home, because that's what it's actually made to build homes with. So it's absolutely fascinating, and I just love it. I could not stop looking at it, but it's so fragile. I already had a tiny little piece break off, so that's why I didn't want to pick it up and actually turn it around and show you, and because the other one's just too damn heavy. So that was the last crystal. The recent deck, I have got one, but I want to do a walkthrough of that particular one, or should I do it now? No, I'll do a walkthrough on that. Oh, I don't know. I suppose the most recent deck that I've got, the two would be the Lightseers Tarot and the Guardian Tarot. But I still have yet to make, because I've only just come back on YouTube, I do want to actually do not a walkthrough, because I've changed how I'm going to a bit of my content on YouTube, but I want to do a discussion on them two decks. But the most recent deck that I only got last Friday is, actually I might as well, because it's only small, I'll just, excuse me, I'll grab it. Oh. I've actually brought a rune deck, and I got this on Game Crafter, and it's a round one. It's a round deck. These are the backs to it. I've edged it in this colour because it actually matches really well in it. And I won't even mention what the runes are. I'll only show you a few. But the reason I got it was because, can you see how I don't know if it's going to show it that well, but on the background it's got all the associated meanings to the particular rune. So this is, I'm not even going to say, because I'm still learning the rune names. I can't just look at it and say what the rune is. I have to actually look it up. But this has got like barbed wire and everything behind it. So what I brought it for is to use my own runes. So if I'll have to go back out here again. So I've just got a little, so I'll just see if I can find it. So I've just got a little, what are they called, little cabinet there. I don't know if I'll be able to find that rune now. I'm sure I saw it before. Is that the one? Which one did I just put down? Them three. See if I can find it. I'll wait till it. Oh, here it is. So what I wanted to do is, so I learned because I'm, like I said, I'm a pictorial reader. I'm trying to get a good light on here. I'm just going to put my own rune on top of it, and I'm hoping that it'll teach me how to read the runes more easily, or how to connect with them. I made this rune deck over 20 years ago, so probably nearly 28 I'm saying now. But because it's got barbed wire on it, so for me just looking at it now, so I suppose it would talk of entrapment and things like that, and for me to have to, why don't we just look it up? It comes with a little booklet, which Nina absolutely hated the booklet because she had a look at it. But I just wanted something that I can help me connect to the runes easier. And I thought by having a card that's got the pictures on the back of it associated with the rune, and placing my one on top of it, that it would help me learn it easier. And of course, I'm not going to find it. What's it actually? Because this is really annoying, this book. Oh, I've got to sit up a bit more now. It's not in any order, like like 1, 2, 3, or just so you can find it easy. You've got to find it all through the book. So okay, so let's see if I can. Is that it? Oh, where's it gone now? I can't even find it on here. So I think it's, yeah, Thurias, so thorn, Old English thorn. So it's got Thor's hammer. God, it's a really tiny reading. Also, the giants called the Thurs, which Thor destroyed with the hammer. Protection. Let me just see if it's got the. Yeah, that's what it's got, the thorns on it. Actually, I don't know. I don't know if that's going to work, because I'm sort of getting something a little bit different. But anyway, that's what I thought. That's the latest deck, and that's what I thought I would do, just to help me try and learn, the runes associated a little bit better, because it's got all the images on the back. Nina said that the images on the back were good, but I'm just thinking if that's... Oh, and it has got thorns, it has got barbed wire. I suppose protection, I don't know. There you go. But that's my latest deck. So I'll just pop that over there, and I'll do a proper walkthrough. But you get the idea anyway. And that it's a really nice little deck, and I got that from Game Crafter. And for us, for me to get it to Australia was about $43, which is not too bad. That's pretty much a good price. So that's my latest one. And my latest crystals, and why they were calling to you. Well, I'm sure that crystal, the what was it, the oconite that I said, is because that's something that I've always said since God knows I can remember. I wish I could go home, not really knowing or associating where that home is. And the other one I just fell in love with. Actually my husband found me that one. He's really good at finding me crystals, the gypsum. I just thought it was absolutely stunning. I like to look for different crystals. I've been wanting to go back there for a while since Nina and I went, and it was my granddaughter's 2nd birthday yesterday. So we were up that way, and behind me, hey, how do you do that on there? There you go, behind me, I actually got a drum that you can see that's sitting on the chair there as well, something else that I wanted to do, but it was quite far from where we lived, so we sort of would hit the 2 spots, you know, at the same time, and when you walk in that place, there's so many of them. There's a few other crystals that I got, but I'll do another crystal haul video soon. And I don't know, sometimes when I read about crystals and I file it away in the back of my head and I think I'm going to get it, and then when I go to that warehouse and I see it and I'll buy it. But other times, like the oconite, I just look at it and I just had to have it. Just straight away it calls to me, and my husband's the same way. He finds things for me, so it's really, really good. Anyway, we'll go on. If you could share a tip for someone learning tarot for the first time, what would it be? Oh, you have to excuse me, hey, my throat's so annoying. Throw away the books. Don't buy any books on tarot whatsoever. Just look at the damn cards and read what you see in it. If someone had only told me that all them years back, because I did buy quite a few books. I think the first one that I got was Nancy Guerin's Tarot for Yourself. So what she did is she took a card and then she would put an associated, what it would mean in love, career, and you know what a few cards together would mean. And I thought, oh, this is bloody terrific, you know. Then after a while I'm thinking, oh God, you know, that doesn't mean what I'm not getting that vibe off it. So I think having books can really hinder you in learning the tarot, as terrible as that sounds. The only book I would ever recommend would be Dusty White's Learning the Tarot, because he does the same thing. He makes you, takes you a card on a journey on the book. He'll put a card down and you have to write down what it is what it means to you, and then he'll explain what traditionally what it means. So his books aren't bad, but really my advice is don't have any books. Just choose whatever card appeals to you. And I'm also going to say, don't just go ahead and buy a Rider-Waite deck for your first deck if you are not attracted to it. I just thought that that's what you had to do. You had to get that particular deck and read with it. No, you don't. You can read with whatever you want. Really, even though I had, I started off with Titania's one, which in a way has been really, really good because it taught me a different way of reading. It taught me to be the pictorial reader that I am. So I don't associate traditional meanings with cards. So I don't always look at for instance, the Three of Swords for me means that there's a new direction happening in the querent's life that they're not aware of it yet. There's 3 different directions, and that's causing the angst because you're not knowing where you are, where you're going, etc., etc. It doesn't always mean heartache. It can mean, for me, it's a new direction that's happening. So I very rarely put the traditional meaning to it. Sometimes I do. Sometimes it is what it is. You do need it, but I'm not. But reading these cards first really taught me a different way. And not only that, because she didn't put traditional Lenormand meanings to them. She modernized it a bit. Because she had a friend of her mother's that used to read them that way. So she's actually modernized it. So some of the meanings are completely different to how I read it. So usually the mountain is obstacles, obstacles and, overseas. But for me, it can still mean an obstacle to get over, sorry. What's that word? I can't think, sorry. I've just got a headache. So, but for me, when I got these 2 cards together, it meant that was somebody who was physically big, who lives overseas or has lived overseas that you're going to meet. And there was a couple of other cards. So my husband is very big. He's very quite muscly. He's from New Zealand, and and I did meet him. I lived in a small country town. Believe you, I did not think I would meet somebody like that. So they taught me. Really, learning the Lenormand first taught me a very different way of approaching the tarot. So don't be afraid what your gut is telling you. If you think that, for instance, oh, I don't know, if you get a good vibe when you see the Tower card come up, which doesn't necessarily always mean a bad thing for me either. If you get a good vibe about it, go with what your gut is telling you. Don't listen that it means destruction, pain, and terror, or whatever it is, you know. Go with what your heart and what your gut's telling you. If you look at that card and you get a feeling, that's the right meaning for you. So that's my biggest thing, is just don't get any books. Just read the damn cards the way you please, the way you see it. Let them speak to you, not the other way around. Don't try and enforce a meaning onto the card because that's what it traditionally meant. Don't do it. Just don't do it. So that's my biggest tip, is don't get any books. Just look at the card and read what you see. First TarotTuber I followed would be Kelly from The Truth and Story, and that was purely by accident because I used to be on the Eclectic Tarot forum. I was on there since 2004, right up until it shut down, and anytime I wanted to look at a deck, at the photos, at the pictures of it, and images I should say, I would go on there. And this one particular deck, and I can't remember what it was, I couldn't find any. I don't even know what made me go on YouTube, but I just Googled it, and I must have Googled, that's right, Googled the images, but YouTube come up and Kelly come up and she had a walkthrough on the deck, and I thought, oh my God, people do this? They go on YouTube? And that just opened a whole new world for me. So she was the very first TarotTuber that I followed constantly. It was constantly. It was just awesome to see that. It really was. What was like, sorry, the next question was, what was life like before tarot or the holistic spiritual oath came to you? Where did I come from? So I grew up without no spirituality whatsoever in my life. My mum's German, my dad's English. She used to grew up during the war, and she used to live next to a church, and she used to watch big wheels of cheese and food and meats and everything get delivered to the church right next door, and the whole village was starving and they never shared it with anybody, and she actually used to faint from hunger. That's how bad it was. So my grandfather had a sister who had a farm, and she used to sneak him some food, which he used to have to hide on his clothes away from the soldiers, because the soldiers were starving too, so they used to often search them and pinch the food off them as well. Because he did tell me a story once he was a young soldier, or maybe even a bit older, and he knew he had the food, but he let him go because he had a family to feed. So as you can imagine, I just was not brought up. So until I found that book, that's how I found my spirituality. And to me, that's kind of beautiful, because everything I've found has been on my own merit. I've had nothing put down my throat. And if you can hear a noise, it's my husband's just turned up, just went for a ride on his Harley. So he's come home. So I might have to pause this and finish it later, because he's going to open the door, I know it. So that's how I came about it. So I'm very goddess orientated. I really am, and I'm glad that mum and dad never forced anything down my throat, you know, because I had friends that were Catholic and very strict. One of my friends, I remember, he didn't stand up in church, and he got, 2 weeks he wasn't allowed to go out, all that sort of thing. So I was curious, but not enough to follow anything. But when I found that book, my God, mind blown. So that's how it came to me, and where I came from was no spirituality whatsoever. And when I told my mum that I was a witch, she was thrilled, absolutely thrilled for me. And when I told her I read the tarot, she said, my mum used to do that, but she used to read normal playing cards back in Germany, and apparently it was very, very good. So mind blown again. Now we got the favourite go-to spread. Well, I don't actually use spreads much. I shuffle, and when cards pop out, I lay them out till I feel like I've got enough. But sometimes if I do use a spread, my favourite one still, and I know people hate it, but I go to the Celtic Cross, but I have my own way of reading it. So card number 3 will be, why did I ask the question in the first place? Card number 5, which up at the top, is your strengths. Card number 7 is what you're afraid of. So they're the different type of positions that I put in the Celtic Cross. Another one that I use is called a 6-month snapshot, that because I do actually read professionally online, and I can't tell you how many of them I sell. It's 21 cards, and you can it's so versatile. So you can have 3 rows of 7. You can do the past, present, future, or you can do 7 rows across but reading it 3 down. So if somebody's got 3 questions, I can associate 3 cards to each question. It's just an amazing spread. I'm very, actually, I don't even think I've done one for myself, because I just don't really use spreads for myself, even though I love to share them on my channel, because some spreads are just awesome and they should be used. But generally I just shuffle until cards pop up. So my most anticipated deck of 2020, I don't really look for that sort of thing. If I see a deck and it appeals to me, I'll buy it, but I don't actually keep up with what's new or anything like that. So I don't really have an anticipated deck at all. So what's on my tarot wish list? I haven't got one either, so I don't have a wish list. It's just whatever appeals to me, whatever calls to me when I see it. I have got 2 on order. I've got the Hush Tarot, which again I saw on Kelly in the Truth in Story on a live chat. And thanks to Nina, I have ordered the Shadowland Tarot, which is absolutely awesome. I cannot wait to get that. And that's it. So that's the only things that I've got. And you can see he just peeked in the doorway, even though he knows I'm filming. There you go. So number 12 is, what were or are your fears? Impression of tarot. I didn't come with any fears whatsoever, because I was so desperate for answers when this particular deck, when I found out about Lenormand and the tarot. I wasn't scared of anything. I just wanted answers, and I asked the big answers, big questions like, will I ever be happy? And yes, the will I ever, I do ask them questions. I don't care. Will I ever be happy? Will I ever get married again? Will I meet my soulmate? Luckily, yes, I did. So there wasn't anything that I was particularly afraid of at all. Even when I did see death in the cards, it didn't scare me. And this is what stopped my grandmother from reading, because she predicted one of her friends' boyfriends, of her fiance actually, death, and it happened exactly like she said it, to the day almost, and it frightened her, and she put away the cards and she never ever read again, which is really, really sad, because I would have loved to have learnt from her had I known about that while she was alive. But then again, I wasn't into it, by the time I got into the tarot, she'd been dead for quite a few years. So nothing really scares me about the tarot, that really aren't. I can't say nothing. I never, just never crossed my mind to be fearful of it. And would you like to start reading tarot, and what's holding you back? Well, I do read, so I do read professionally online for Future Me. I do have my own, which I've been on there since 2015, I think. I've been reading on there. I've got my own website, so yep, nothing's holding me back on that. Have you ever gotten reading from another reader, and what were your feelings about it? Well, this is what happened in that time frame. So after I left that live-in position as a manager, and I got a night shift, and I went and got a reading from, because my marriage was like in tatters, and I got a reading at a local market. And so she gave me the reading, and it didn't feel right. It didn't sit with me. Even though I knew nothing about it, I just thought, no, it was crap. I can do better than that. So I went to the news agency and I brought my first Rider-Waite deck, and I started, and I just started reading myself, and that's how it started. So I didn't like a reading. That's what got me off, well, not got me off, but what got me started in the about getting another reading. I don't get, oh God, I've got all muddled up now. So I don't let anybody read for me. I just purely read for myself. The only time now that somebody would read for me would be Nina, and then for us it's just the 2 of us sitting together, just shuffling a deck, asking all these different types of questions and throwing them down. So it's not actually her and I sitting down one-on-one asking a serious question, laying out the cards. We're not like that, because we like to have fun. So I have had a reading from another reader, and I hated it, and that's what actually made me go out and buy my own deck, because I thought I could do better. And also back then I couldn't afford to get a reading whenever I wanted one, and I had some major questions. So yeah, so that's it. That was my feelings about it. I hated it, and it started me on my path. So, but like I said, it all happened within this time frame. So what vibes do you like to get when getting a reading? So because I don't let anybody really read for me, I like to have a, it's really hard to describe. I like no bullshit in my readings. So my cards tell me like it is, no matter what I read with, and that's if I was to get a reading from somebody else, that's what I like. So yeah, if I was looking for a read, it'd have to be someone that tells it like it is, because that's what I am. I class I'm not a cupcake reader. I tell it like it is when I read, and that's what I would expect if I had a reading from someone else. So last one is to tag the next TarotTuber. So I'm going to tag Shamanic Arawak Priestess, who's absolutely awesome. So I'll have to let her know that, because she just recently knows that I've come back onto YouTube. But this was fun. I really enjoy this, and thanks Nat for tagging me into this one. And until next time, this is Tracy.